It's good. It's very moderately, high. It's very moderately priced. Oh, good. A burger is like, $9. Oh.
Guess everyone wanted to join us for Valentine's Day today.
Did you not go to the site review?
No, I had work, and then if I didn't go home and see my kids, I won't see them till after work tomorrow, because I had a meeting last night,
Right.
and then work today, so 3 days with my
Yeah.
husband without a little help is a little much.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't find my name.
You couldn't find it?
It's not in any of the drawers.
Couldn't find your heater?
My name.
Oh, your name?
I don't really care.
It's gotta be there.
I went through them all.
Both drawers?
Yep.
Ewing.
Y-E.
That's, no.
You hear me? Why is there an E?
You can ask him later.
No, forget it. He'll correct me.
Yeah, what time do you do it? That's.
Now you put that stuff on the desk.
Sorry. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And a happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Okay, Leslie, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Wolf,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Ewan,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, have we had a chance to review the agenda? We'll take a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay. Motion by Lindsay and support by
Tracy.
Tracy. Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Review for any conflict of interest? Seeing none? Okay. All right, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, can I
By all means,
interject on that?
yes.
In front of every one of you, well, you have your packet. In that packet is the minutes from last month. In addition to that, on your desk is the findings of fact as voted upon and approved from the January 10th meeting. Items that were an option in the findings of fact have been removed so that all that you see is what was approved and voted on.
Okay, thank you for those corrections. All right, can we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Rod, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Okay, opposed. Okay, approved. Okay. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, another interjection, I apologize. If there was a mother-son that wanted to attend tonight, and I was asked if the mother could donate her 3 minutes to her son to speak, I did approve that prior to tonight, so I don't know that they're here tonight, but if they are, I did approve that prior to this meeting.
Okay. All right, any public comment other than what's on the agenda this evening? And the public comment starts at, about quarter of. Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay. Okay, reports?
Sorry, did you want me to go ahead?
Well, the township?
Yeah, we had our meeting last night. We had lengthy discussion on the short-term rental rewrite, and we did a few other housekeeping things, but that was our main focus.
Thank you. For the Planning Commission, we had our February 7th meeting with the township trustees, and in there, we discussed the zoning rewrite. We had a presentation on the brownfield, excuse me, planning. We discussed the master plan priorities and discussed the capital improvement program. Okay. So, all right. Sir?
For the Planning and Zoning Department, I know that Claire's had several developments come in recently that she has been busy reviewing. And regarding zoning specifically, status quo on short-term rental and land use permits. And I'm happy to report that my partner in crime has returned, Leslie Couturier. Happy to see her back.
Yes, we do. Yes, welcome back. Thank you. Okay. I see on here there's a second public comment. I think that's probably a typo.
Probably should be at the end.
I'm thinking so. So we just go before the actual business before the board, the agenda item.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I interject again at this point?
Yes?
Sorry. Going back up on the agenda for the correspondence, you have before you a tremendous amount of correspondence that came in. In the packet, if I recall correctly, there is only one letter that was received that came in before the packet was published. The remainder of the correspondence came in after that. It's all been made part of the permanent record, and you have copies of everything that I received. We had correspondence coming in even up to 4:45 this afternoon. And before getting into our agenda items 1 and 2, on agenda item 1-23, I want to point out a typo that in the staff report, this is on me, it's a typo. It says that there was 4 of the 7 basic conditions that were met. There is 5 of the basic 7 conditions that were met. It was not 4, it's 5. And then back to correspondence real quick. A majority of the correspondence that you have, it addresses both variances, 1 and 2 of 23. It's not just one or the other. Again, the majority cover both. For our variances, I would like to respectfully draw your attention to ordinance section 231 of the Forest Lakes overlay. That is the meat and potatoes of what you're going to be kind of basing your decisions on tonight. And in section 231, Forest Lakes overlay, under section 1, just want to note something that this section is intended to promote, and this word preservation, it's intended to promote the preservation of natural features around and near lakefronts that are characterized by their current natural state. As you are applying this section to the material provided by the applicants, I would again respectfully request that you keep that in mind. And then we're also dealing with section 505 on setbacks. And again, I would respectfully request that you kind of think about why setbacks are established and the importance of them, especially if there's a setback to a inland lake, to a waterfront. And those are the big ones as we're looking at both variances tonight. And then in section, for variance 2-23, applicant contacted me and wanted to, I guess scale back would be a term we could use for the variances requesting this evening. New material was presented. That material has been disseminated to you. It's on your desk. It's also been made part of the permanent record. And I encourage you that on either variance, if there is material that is lacking and you don't feel comfortable making a decision based on the material presented, that we always do have that option of tabling it and coming back to it.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
question? Which item from is the scale back?
The,
This one or this one?
It was also.
2.23.
emailed to you.
Thank you.
If for some reason you're not finding it in that bound, it was emailed to you as well. Are you able to pull up your East Bay email, Lindsay?
Is it this one right here, Preston?
Nope. Nope.
It's an email from Mr. Mayhew, and it has like all this table stuff on the front.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to know what I'm looking at.
Thank you.
It's just helpful to look.
Did you print that out?
I did. I don't know why we're not seeing it here.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of that.
I could quickly go print off some more while you guys begin to discuss the first agenda item. Happy to do that.
Yeah, I
Well-
don't have that.
Why don't we, well, hang on a second. Why don't we get into it? I'll tell you what, why don't we take about a 5-minute recess?
Okay.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess while you get the materials you need. Is that agreed? Thank
You
you.
want this, Preston? You want my copy?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't see it either.
Yeah,
don't see it there.
I don't see it on the desk. I printed mine when he emailed it.
Well, you are a master of all trades, aren't you? You're on this committee, that committee.
Well, I am now.
Yeah. I was glad to see you were on. It was glad to see you.
that one.
You know, I could have went and done that, you know. Don't you know?
It's not used to having help.
That's true.
Don't tell him. Let him suffer.
He suffered enough. I've only been back 2 days.
It's good for him.
Gotcha.
Long 2 days.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I don't know what I would think of me. You need it?
Okay, we'll reconvene at 6:52 and take up the first agenda item, which is David McCormick, owner of a parcel of land commonly known as 1966 East Abutus Lake Road, Traverse City, the property identification 03109-003-10 in the Lakes area. The request requires a variance from Section 231, Section 6 of the Forest Lakes Overlay Development Standards, specifically an impervious surface variance resulting in a 27% impervious surface calculation. The ordinance requires a maximum of 20% per section 231. In addition, the applicant seeks an 18-foot variance from the required 20-foot front yard setback requirement for accessory structures, section 505, table 1. Okay. So, PT?
Nothing really to add to it at this point, Mr. Chair. The applicant is present and does have a PowerPoint that he wishes to do.
Okay, that's fine.
Here, we can get this thing hooked up.
Sounds like it's warming up.
Yeah, it should be good here in just a second, David. Power light is on.
Okay, in the meantime, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Dave McCormick, 1966 East Arbutus Lake Road.
Thank you.
Rapid City. And let's see if we can make this work. Excellent. Good evening. You mentioned where I live. You mentioned the parcel number. And as I said, I'm Dave McCormick, the owner of the property. I do live on Arbutus Lake number 2. My house is located in the Forest Lakes Overlay District. I would basically like to build a 28 by 44 foot pole barn that requires 2 variances. The first variance is the impervious surface variance. The property currently contains structures and an asphalt drive along with a private drive that goes through my property that contains in total about 20% impervious surfaces. So I'm currently just at or just barely under the 20% limit. What I'd like to do is increase that to 27%, and that's to basically accommodate the new structure along with a short drive to get to the new structure. The second is a setback variance. Section 505 requires a 20-foot setback from certain easements. I happen to have a 30-foot wide easement that goes through my property, and the easement has a private drive on it that, according to the ordinance, is basically considered a street right-of-way. As a result, I basically need to be 20 foot off the easement. So essentially, instead of having a 30-foot easement, for all practical purposes, the ordinance basically requires a 70-foot easement. And what I'd like to do is reduce that setback to 0. I'd like to basically be able to build up to the easement, but in reality, I would be off of the easement by about 2 feet. A couple factors. One, and I'm going to show you a diagram, but my property is basically sandwiched between 2 much larger parcels of land. I own a parcel of land that's 0.92 acres. There's another parcel that's roughly 11 acres just to the immediate north of me. And then there's another parcel that's 14 1/4 acres to the south of me. And if you combine all three parcels, the current impervious surface requirements or usage is less than 4%. And regardless of what I do, the three parcels combined will never be anywhere near the 20%. So I think in terms of the spirit of the ordinance, that I pretty much wouldn't be in violation. It's kind of a function of where the property lines are and the small parcel that I happen to have. Relative to the private drive, and I do understand that it is designed to accommodate particular traffic. Most of the members were actually at my property earlier today and saw the drive. It is a roughly a third of a mile long. It's roughly 12 foot wide. It's an asphalt drive. It services two houses, my house and then my neighbor's house. And it dead ends basically at my neighbor's house. I'm not 100% sure that I would call that a street, but I didn't write the regulations, so I trust that the 20-foot offset is required. I just question whether there's really a need to be that far off of the street or the road itself. As proposed, the northwest corner of the pole barn is going to be about 2 feet off of the easement, and it's going to be about 12 feet off of the actual paved road. Okay, this is the area I want to kind of focus on relative to the impervious surface variance. This section right here is my property. And as I mentioned, it's 0.92 acres in size. The lot to the south is the lot identified as B2. That's 13.24 acres in size. And the lot to the north is parcel C, which is 11.7 acres. So I'm kind of sandwiched between these two parcels. The parcel B2 is currently an empty lot with what I'll call limited building potential. It's got a strange shape, and you can't physically build on Lake Arbutus itself. But right now it is a vacant lot. The only impervious surface is the access road that goes through that property. Parcel C is my neighbor's house, and it contains a residential home, and it also contains a standalone pole barn. When all three lots are combined, current impervious surfaces cover less than 4%, probably even less than 3%, but I couldn't do the exact calculations. And regardless of what I do, the three lots combined will never be anywhere near 20%. This I'm just showing you because this is the survey that was done before the house was actually built. And it shows a proposed location for the home. The actual house is not at that location, and it's not of that shape. So what I did is try to correct this without having a professional survey redone. And this accurately shows where the house is, and it shows the roughly the size of the house. It also shows where I'd like to put this pole barn. And as I mentioned, the northwest corner of the pole barn would basically be 20 feet off of the property line, which does meet the requirements. It would be about 2 feet off of the easement, and it would be about 12 feet off of the actual paved road that goes through. On the south side, it would be 10 foot off of the property line, which also meets the requirement. In terms of impervious surfaces, and I was very exact here, looking at every single piece of structure plus the roads and everything else. And I'm currently at about just a hair under 8,000 square feet, which would be just a hair under 20%. The proposed pole barn would add 1,232 square feet for the structure itself. Plus, it would take about 800 square foot in terms of a relatively short drive going to the structure. So that would put me at about 25%. Now, I'm technically asking for a variance to go up to 27%, only because I want to make sure that if a surveyor comes in and does a drawing of the structure and what's on the property today, that I'm not slightly off in my calculations. But I believe that I need 25%. I'm asking for 27, just in case there's a problem with the calculations themselves. This is a picture of the current home. And you can see that in the background. This is the area that I plan on putting the pole barn in. And in that location. And it's going to be a relatively simple garage-looking structure. There's going to be a double door in the front. It's going to be 28 foot wide. It's going to be 44 foot deep. And it's going to look similar to that. A basic garage type structure that's, as I mentioned, 28 by 44. I'm going to flip back to this in case anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Just, there may be some questions coming to you, so we'll be right back to you.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Okay, let's open the public hearing at 7:05. Anybody who has any comments, please come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grant Card. I currently reside at 1448 Saffron Circle, Traverse City, Michigan. My family and I were the original owners of all three parcels in question. Currently, we own parcel B2, the 3 1/4 acres Mr. McCormick referenced. We are fervently opposed to, one, the building of such a structure in the Arbutus Lake area. It's a heavily wooded area that we've preserved for over 3 generations, all of which are here with me this evening. And claiming that our 13 1/4 acre lot has limited building potential, I fear is factually inaccurate. We're surrounded by a heavy forest line. The majority of Perch Lake rests on our property as well, of which we own about 95% of the lake surface area, as well as 113 feet of water frontage, which is directly adjacent to the proposed building location of the barn. So he also claimed in his proposal that building such a structure would not negatively impact property values. Again, I disagree, personal opinion. But we've served as stewards of that land for many, many years and would like to preserve its natural beauty. And building essentially an auto garage in the center of the forest is something that we are opposed to.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Greg Palezza from East Bay Township, and let me see if I can connect this. I had included a letter with some photos in your packet, if you could make reference to. I'll just make some brief comments to supplement my letter regarding 1966 East Arbutus Lake Road request for variance. If you take a look at the Grand Traverse County parcel viewer, you get a very clear picture of actually the overall topography of the parcel and how the house lays on the land, as well as the surrounding area, which, as you know, has a lot of turf grass and is fairly devoid of natural vegetation and trees. And if you use that same Grand Traverse County parcel viewer and use the measuring device to calculate out actually how much of that parcel itself has been altered for the current structure as well as the surrounding area, it represents about 50% of the parcel, or about 20,000 square feet. Now, the proposed pole barn it isn't a small garage. 24 by 24 would be a typical garage. This is about twice the size. Now, when you put up a pole barn, you don't just take out a footprint and include an impervious surface. You also have to clear the area around your investment to protect it from trees that are going to fall. And usually the construction adds a buffer of 5 to 10 feet, probably at minimum, around the structure. So the area of disturbance that would occur in the site as proposed would be about 3,000 square feet in addition to the amount of land allocated for the driveway. So we would be really altering about 3,800 square feet of an already compromised lot. And, you know, the trees provide protection for the runoff and rainfall. The root structures provide the soil stabilization that protects our waterways. If you take a look at the Grand Traverse County parcel viewer as well, you note that the parcel has proximity to two parts of Arbutus Lake as well as Perch Lake. The distance of Perch Lake is about 90 feet, and the ones to Arbutus is further, but the whole ecosystem there is a little bit of like a peninsula, and I think is more risk than is apparent by just applying these setbacks. So what I urge you to do is, unfortunately, a very difficult thing. You have to make judgment on our wishes and aspirations and hopes of many of us in terms of building our dream houses and retreats here in the North Country, but every variance request, if it is allowed, really is additive in terms of its negative effects. And so we have concerns about this going forward, and I just wanted to have the council here just have a sense of the overall picture in making the determination, as well as applying what are very reasonable protections in the Forest Lake in terms of the usual setbacks that are applied here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you able to plug in?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
This is Grand Traverse parcel that.
Yeah, I realize that.
Okay. Hi, Judy.
Good evening. Good evening, Judy Nemitz, East Bay Township. Section 231 is key. Having been instrumental in developing that section, it is complicated. It takes in 500 feet, not just the 50, folks. It's 500 feet from a body of water where trees and vegetation and things like that need to be inventoried and calculated. So we're talking, even though we're talking away from the lakes, we're also talking other watersheds involved in this parcel. So I want you to make sure that we really have gone through that section 231 and understand how it's applicable to each one of these sites tonight. The other thing that I think is really important is the impervious surface aspect. The soils out there are sandy loam. They don't hold unless there is something vegetative to hold it. And when you start creating runoff without stormwater mitigation, etc., it's going to cause things to run into the watershed, and we all drink that water eventually. It either goes to the bay, or we're drinking it out of the Forest Lakes area. There's a reason why 231 was created in, I believe, 2008, and approved. And Commissioner Trustee Bartlett It was a pleasure to serve with you then, and you were very good at helping us get that passed. I think also the dimensional setbacks, 505, is a really important aspect of this. We have to understand why we've asked for these setbacks. We do sometimes have snow up here. And so I think it is important that we understand the health, safety, and welfare of pushing that around and knowing where that goes. We have an added impervious surface, and then where are we going to push the snow? And then that's going to melt, and as you can see, a lot of the vegetation from that aerial is gone already. So I think we really need to be cognizant of the sections of 231, and if you do grant that, are you really, think about it, are you creating section 201, which is, if you give the easement, another non-conforming in the lakes area because it wouldn't meet the setbacks? So you're essentially okaying a non-conforming. So I need you to think about that, and I thank you very much for your time tonight, and have a good day.
Good evening to all.
Hi.
I'm Carol Sheffra. I'm 1863. I'm above the watershed of the Boardman River Valley, so I'm 2490 Cambridge Drive. And I'm an East Bay Township citizen. And I did put a letter in your packet, which I hope you're able to read every one of these letters. But let me add to that. Just very briefly. Recently, East Bay Township appointed and elected officials who worked so hard with concerned citizens of East Bay to develop and update the new master plan. And yay, included into the master plan are the main elements of the Forest Lakes overlay on Lake of the Flow. We all know that the flow is widely recognized and emulated by communities all across the nation. Relating to the request for the variances, 122 and 2-23, we turn again to the flow, 231, to protect our forest lakes from the negative effects of the imperviousness. Earlier speakers, I won't repeat, they did a beautiful job of explaining the filtering need of the roots of the trees and the fauna. All of us here and throughout the region, we fully recognize it's our natural resources that cause us to want to live here. And it's our natural resources that bring tourists who drive our tourist industry engine. Please, tonight, continue to protect our lakes, our rivers, the whole network of the streams and the wetlands. Because as citizen Nemitz just said, it's all going to wind up in the bay, and all of these things work together to make it happen, to keep our water pure. Please tonight continue to protect those lakes, those rivers, those streams, those wetlands by voting no on these two requests for ordinance variances. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Judy Pelto, East Bay Township. I'm going to do some repeating here. I have a letter in the packet, but the letter I would really encourage you to read is from Heather Smith, the Bay Trooper for the watershed. The Forest Lakes Overlay District is also intended to promote the preservation of natural features around the near lakefronts that are characterized by the current natural state to protect water quality and regulate development and the use of property which has water frontage along an inland lake through the application of land use and development standards, which shall apply in addition to any and all standards within the underlying zoning district. And as far as removal of trees or the importance of not removing trees, trees are the great stormwater control. They're the preservation key to water quality. They prevent erosion, filter contaminants before they enter the waterways, absorb rainfall and snow melt, recharge aquifers, and slow stormwater runoff. I think that the applicant, as stated in the watersheds letter and in my letter has the option of reducing impervious surfaces elsewhere on his property, replacing impervious porches and patios with grassy areas or gardens to achieve compliance with impervious surface limitations. The overlay vegetation and filter buffs requires 80% vegetation attainment. The applicant could also reduce the size of the pole barn and asphalt driveway leading to the pole barn. The applicant could use pervious pavement or asphalt to reduce encroaching on the impervious surface limitations. So he has options available that he can still have his pole barn, but he needs to stay within the guidelines of the overlay. Otherwise, I think, as previously mentioned, you're just opening a can of worms. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Ralph.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Bednars. I'm a lakefront property owner on Rennie Lake in the township. I also currently serve as the Rennie Lake Association Board President. Tonight I want to support the comments submitted by Heather Smith, Grand Traverse Baykeeper, regarding variance number 1-23 at 1966 East Arbutus Lake Road, and number 2-23, 4399 Lakeview Trail, and respectfully request that you agree with the recommendations of Ms. Smith and the Township Zoning Administrator and deny these variances. I also want to comment on the importance of the high-quality inland lakes to the nation, to the state of Michigan, and to the Forest Lakes area. Lakes provide numerous ecosystem and cultural services that support all aspects of our lives. Lakes with high water quality add significant economic value to lakefront properties and nearby homes, as well as being significant tourism and recreation to lake communities. Yet high-quality lakes across the U.S. continent are disappearing, a fate that is impacting ecosystem health and fish species as well as property values. Globally, freshwater lakes are losing biodiversity at twice the rate of loss from land or ocean vertebrates. It is imperative that the United States do more to conserve low-impacted, high-quality lakes before they are diminished for future generations. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's 2007 and 2012 National Lake Assessment, the NLA, confirmed what many lake professionals have noticed themselves, that healthy lake condition is declining. A recent study using the 2007 and 2012 NLA data found that quote-unquote blue lakes decreased by 18%, while quote-unquote murky lakes increased by 12% over this time period. The 2012 NLA found that only 10% of the nation's lakes remain as oligotrophic, the most valued clear water quote-unquote blue lake type. Michigan participated in the NLA surveys and also found a decline of oligotrophic lakes in the state. These results emphasize the need for protective lakes management. This includes watershed and shoreline protection, as well as controlling nutrient enrichment. The major lakes in the Forest Lakes districts are classified as oligotrophic or oligomesotrophic lakes, although their trophic status is vulnerable given their lake size and average depth and the development around them. We all must work toward implementing best management practices to protect the water quality and ecosystem health of these high-quality lakes. You can facilitate this by upholding and enforcing the Forest Lakes overlay zoning standards and denying these and future variance requests in the Forest Lakes districts. Thank you for your opportunity to comment on the value of the high-quality lakes and the need to protect them. And thank you for your service to East Bay Township and the residents of Forest Lakes District.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
I didn't think that was so funny.
No, I was laughing at Tracy. Sorry, Ralph.
Is there anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:23.
Just a second. I guess I misunderstood you. I'm here to talk in regards to,
You have to come up to the,
I thought you were asking in regards to the specific property. Okay, I have a little thing I'm going to read here. I'm property owner on Spider Lake, 4411 Lakeview Trail is where my property is.
and your name?
My name is Bruce Brown. There's a proposed house expansion at 4399 Lakeview Trail. The owners are requesting to not follow existing regulations for building in the township of East Bay Township.
We're not on that one. That's coming up.
I thought we had switched.
No, no,
Okay, okay.
no.
Not yet.
I
Okay,
apologize.
we'll let you know
We'll
when.
let you know.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, close the public hearing at 7:24. And we'll bring it back to the board. Thoughts, comments? Rod?
Well, I think, from everything we've heard, and then also being out to the site, I don't think I can't accept the idea that property next door adds to the impervious surface. There's no guarantee if the owner doesn't have it anybody can build on that, and they're going to build whatever they can, up to their 20%. So we can't add to that. I see that as a very clear distinction. Also that the neighbor spoke and said, they're not for this too, and that's right where the pole barn would be going. So I just see this as, more work's got to be done, or it's got to be downsized, or whatever that takes.
I also agree. We can only take the property where the development is into consideration. You can't take the surrounding properties into consideration. And I'm uncomfortable with having an inaccurate survey with, some changes to it between a 25 and a 27% increase. I'd like to know an exact number. Those are just my current thoughts until we go through the basic conditions.
Yeah, I agree. The lot's the lot, and that's what you got to deal with. And being on this lot's already got real close to 20% impervious coverage. I don't see how any pole barn can be built without some kind of variance. And I'm not willing to go above the 20%, at least not by that much. If it's a little closer, I might consider it, but we're asking for 27%. That's approaching a third more. So what's allowed, so I'm plus the setbacks, I'd like to see the pole barn off that road a little further, but I don't see this is a good spot to put it. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think there are other locations on the property where the pole barn can go that would not have a problem with setbacks. And I may have a little wiggle room with the impervious surface just because it's that long driveway. And from my understanding, it was not him that paved it, but his neighbor. But if the pole barn was away from the water more, that would help me get my head around that a little better.
Thank you.
Preston, do you have
I was going to say, Preston, do you have any comments on your staff review?
Well, as noted, I found 5 of the basic conditions to be met, not 4. As a suggestion to the board, my recommendation was not to approve the variance as presented as a keeper of the Forest Lakes overlay and the zoning ordinance. I will note, kind of to Tracy's comment, that the impervious surface calculation is, although accurate, is a bit skewed because of the amount of pavement that's for the driveway for the neighbor that is almost entirely on the applicant's property. Other than that, I don't have any additional comments.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could come up to the podium, please. Thank you. Have you considered the possibility of moving your pole barn next to your home? That open space that you have in between there? I know we talked a little bit about that, but is there any considerations that you have on that?
It's definitely a possibility. I'm a little concerned, just aesthetically, if you ended up putting the pole barn essentially between my house and Mirathu's house, which is the one to the north, that it would distract from the aesthetics of the property. But moving it to that area would eliminate the need for the variance for the offset. I can't do anything, though. I mean, I couldn't do anything at all without a variance for the impervious surfaces. So to answer your question, I am willing to look at putting the pole barn in a different location that would eliminate the need for the offset variance. But, yeah, without the impervious surface, I'm already at 20% or awful close. So you couldn't do anything in terms of any additional structure or any additional impervious surfaces. One thing that, and Preston kind of mentioned it, but there's a shared drive that basically is on part of my property going up to my driveway. And then there's another drive that is basically exclusively for the neighbor's use to get from my property basically over to his property. That used to be a dirt road, and it's almost ironic because if it were still a dirt road, I could put the pole barn in that I'm proposing without exceeding the 20%. In other words, if you look at the shared drive, it actually takes up slightly more square footage. It's somewhere around 2,200 versus what I'm proposing in terms of adding the pole barn. The other factor, and something I really didn't consider, but I'm listening to all the comments. The current proposed location does involve removing a lot of trees. I don't have an exact number, but it's probably on the order of 70. So it's quite a large number of trees. If I were to put the pole barn at that alternate location, basically between our two houses, I could do that with removing very few trees. Very few being like 6. So that's certainly a possibility that I would consider. I'm not sure I do it yet because of the fact that it would mean I lose my side yard. But there are some advantages, and it is something I would consider, assuming that the board was willing to grant the impervious surface variance. Without the impervious surface variance, I can't do anything.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the gentleman?
I guess just one. I know while we were there, you mentioned you store a little bit in the existing garages now, and you wanted to move that to the pole barn. The existing garage now is a two-stall garage, correct?
It's actually 3.
Okay,
One of the stalls, you have access from the back of from the side yard.
but the pole barn you're talking about building is significantly larger. It's probably double the size, 28 by 44. I mean, even 24 by 24, 26 by 26 is, so that would cut down on impervious surface also.
And actually going with a smaller pole barn is something that I would be willing to consider.
And just a thought to get you to,
It's kind of like, I almost need to know how much could I go above the 20% limit to tell whether I
okay,
have options.
just,
But, I would certainly be willing to look at something smaller. My calculations on the impervious surface are extremely accurate. I mean, I'm thinking that I'm currently just a hair below 20%. If you told me I could go to 23 or 24, I'd look at it and make a decision, I guess. But the question becomes whether there's any wiggle room in terms of the 20%.
Any other questions from Mr. McCormick?
When was the driveway paved from the dirt to the neighbor's property?
I'm not positive, but I'm guessing that you would
We
know.
actually, my family built Mr. McCormick's home, we sold it.
Sir, could you come up to the,
My family actually built Mr. McCormick's home. We built it in 2004 and sold it to him in 2019. And I believe the driveway was paved in 2000.
I can't remember exactly.
It's
There's something closes.
2013, probably.
right around there,
12 or
2013,
13 maybe.
2014. So it's been almost a decade.
Thank you.
And the driveway was definitely paved when I purchased the home.
any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have to agree that when we look at a parcel of property, it's based on the parcel, and we can't be combining things to average them out, things of that nature. I know this is tough, particularly because of the slope of the property itself. It seems to go down quite a bit towards the lakes areas. It's a tough one, but at the same time, we do have the reason why we put in the Forest Lakes overlay was to primarily protect those lakes, and sometimes it causes some inconvenience, but unfortunately, that's the greater good, I think, as far as the overlays is taking into consideration. That being said, I'm just wondering at this point, is there a need for a motion at this point?
I'm uncomfortable with really any amount of impervious surface, and I can't speak to, if I'm comfortable with 22, 23. I mean, 20% is in place for a reason, so I would have to deny this variance request as it doesn't meet all the basic conditions.
I would make a motion to that effect, that we deny this variance
Okay.
based on the two of the five not basic requirements, that being, two of the 7 basic requirements not being met.
Okay. Motion by John to deny the variance request based upon failing to satisfy 2 of the 7 items of the ordinance. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by John, second by Lindsay on the motion. May we have a vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, variance is denied, I'm sorry.
I just want to thank you guys. I really appreciate the fact that 5 of the board members actually came out to the site, took a look at the property, and not what I wanted to hear, but understand where you're coming from, and do appreciate the time and effort you put into at least looking at my request.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful home. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, this part of it stinks.
All right, moving on to the variance request 2.23. Russell and Paula Matthews, owner of a parcel of land commonly known as 4399 Lakeview Trail, Traverse City. Property identification 03610-068-00 in the Lakes Area Zoning District. The applicant requests a variance from Section 231, subsection 6, subsection A, Forest Lake Overlay Development Standards, specifically a variance resulting in, I presume at this point, a 1% overage on the impervious surface. In addition, a proposed setback resulting in a 12-foot 9-inch rear front lake setback variance and a front yard setback of 11 feet 8 inches, resulting in an 18.4 variance. Section 505, Table 1, in the Lakes District under the Forest Lakes Overlay, and Section 505, Table 1, the maximum impervious surface allowed is 20%, and the lake front setback is 50 feet, and the front yard setback is 30 feet from the road. Okay. Sir.
In your packet, as you can see, there are a few different moving parts, 3 different variances being sought for the tear down and reconstruction of a home at that address. As noted at the beginning of the meeting, yesterday I had a phone call with the applicant who presented to me that he wished to make some changes and dial back or scale back his requested variance. I requested detailed information regarding what those changes would be. Those were provided to me this morning at 8:21, and you now have copies of those in front of you. Still, as noted on the material in front of you, still over by 1% on the impervious surface. Still the same request at the roadside, and a scale back of the large, if you look at the drawing, it's a large overhang roof, and there would be a scale back on that, leaving just a portion of that within the 50-foot, and it would also reduce the amount of variance required on the 50-foot ordinary high water mark. It would be a little bit further away from it. Still not outside the 50-foot, but a little bit further away. Also, in our conversation, encourage the applicant to be prepared to discuss those changes with you and kind of overall what his goals were for this proposed project.
Thank you. Okay, would you come up, please? Hi. Hi, Russ.
My name is Russ Matthew, 4399 Lakeview Trail, Traverse City, Michigan. I want to first of all say that I do appreciate everything that everyone that has come up and talked about the Forest Lake overlay. It is also important to me. I have spent 7 months and I have bothered Preston, my architect, my surveyor, to move this house, start with different places, move it back, move it forward, move it side. You guys have the survey with you. You can see that I'm working with a triangle. It's kind of difficult to build a square. It's kind of like the old saying, pounding a round peg into a square hole. It's very difficult to put a square inside that triangle to where it would actually work for what we're trying to build. We did reduce, I will tell you, I had a little bit of a aha moment when I called Preston the other day. When we first put this proposal together, I didn't realize that the parking lot was involved in the impervious surface. I don't know if you can remember or not, but when he told me it was totaling at 32%, I was like, it shouldn't be 32%. I don't understand why it's 32%. Well then, right, we looked at it, I realized. So that was part of the reason that we did adjust, and you guys got it yesterday, or this morning, my changes, which dropped it from asking for 32% of impervious surface down to 21%. So that was part of it. I didn't realize that we had always planned to remove parking lot. That's at the top. It's a paved parking lot, and we're going to go with a pervious gravel parking lot. So that was part of the reason that I made that change this morning with Preston. I want to start out with, first and foremost, the current property that we have a parking lot, which I mentioned, the house. We have a large paved patio in the front. We have a sidewalk that goes down to the water. That actually totals 24% impervious surface on the current property. So when we're looking at preserving, because I know that's one of the biggest things that I kept looking at with Forest Lakes Overlay, they kept talking about preserving the current natural state. Well, if I stayed with the natural state, I would actually have more impervious surface than what I'm asking for with this new bill. Okay, so that's one of the bigger things. Also, our house currently sits at 46 feet from the ordinary high water mark. We're actually moving the structure back to 50 feet. The overhang, the roof overhang, just a corner of it actually sits in front of the 50-foot ordinary high water mark. It's not the structure. It's just the actual roof line. We have, it's, what do they call it, overhang that sits over the ordinary high water mark. We actually moved the property back, or the building back on purpose, trying to stay within the 50-foot setback. As far as the third thing that we're asking about, which is the back setback, we're on a peninsula, and you guys were out there tonight. It's a one-car road. You can't pass each other. It's a very small road. Houses are right on the road. They're right on the water. And everybody has, we have unusually sized lots. So with that back, the back road actually comes towards my property, which is part of the triangle issue that I'm having. And it's not, again, the entire garage that's over this setback. It's just the corner of the garage. And in the diagram should show it. We're just looking at the corner of the garage that is over that setback side, that setback amount. So when I was looking at Preston's he gave us 7 different conditions that we had to meet. We met 5, there were 2 we did not meet. The first one, he said we did not satisfy it based on the fact that the setback, there was a setback issue, and we were exceeding the allowable impervious surface. Yes, I am going to exceed it by 1%. We're at 21%, but if I don't rebuild this house or change this house, we're at 24, I think it's 24.8%. So it's actually helping. By rebuilding, we'll have less impervious surface total for the property. So I think that there alone would satisfy that first condition. The second one that we do not satisfy has to do with number 6. Is the requested variance shall not be necessitated by a self-created condition or action taken by the applicant or property owner. He said that the house was purchased, it's livable and it's functional. I beg to differ on the livable and functional. We don't use the houses, I like to say it's 3-season, it's probably more of a 2-season. It's an old fisherman's cabin. The gentleman that we bought it off of, or the family that we bought it off of, never insulated it, never had heat. It had a fireplace. The insert in the fireplace rotted away years ago. We just, we use electric heaters to try and keep it warm when we do use the house. They did put in a propane stove that I'm not really fond of, so we try not to use it. Last year, when we plugged in electric heaters, we had one of our outlets start smoking. So there's issues with the current building. And the biggest problem we have with the building too is the foundation. I've had, our architect came out, and I did have contractors come out. In order for us to put a foundation under there, it would not be cost prohibitive, because we basically have to lift the building up, and at that point, once it gets lifted up, talking to Preston, now we're right into it's considered a building. So it's like, if I'm gonna do that, and I have to lift it up to put a foundation underneath it, now it's a whole new structure, so now it has to meet everything, and then if I'm gonna spend that money already, I may as well make it what we want it. We don't have any type of laundry facility. Our well, and I know you guys all live up here, our well is outside. So I get water a few months, 5-6 months a year. Anytime it's cold, it freezes. So I would like to be able to have it brought back in. I have nowhere inside the building that I could actually bring it into the actual building. With this new construction, we'll actually have the whole well and everything like, or the well pump and everything like that will be inside. Not the well, I apologize. The well is not coming inside, but the well pump and everything will be inside. So I don't believe in its current state that it is livable. And this is the biggest thing, this is our future home. My wife and I are 5 to 10 years from retirement right now. I'm from Traverse City, grew up in Traverse City, we got married in Traverse City. I've had family members own 16 different properties on that lake. I have been, I've been involved with that lake. I've been involved with, many of the different homes that, like I said, my uncles, my grandfather, my dad, everyone's had property on that lake. So I have always been a good steward of that lake. I've been fishing this lake my entire life, from when I could walk. So this is not something where I'm coming from downstate, just trying to find something that I can build, and not caring about the community. I care about this local community, which is why when we first started this, I read through all of the Forest Lake, and it is very difficult, like she said. It is difficult to kind of understand the entire thing, but the sticking points was the 20%, and I knew I had to try and get around that 20%, but again, we're with this little triangle that I'm trying to build this on, I just didn't have enough space to be able to do that with the impervious surface. Now, with the 21% though, we are looking at alternative ways of, because the biggest concern with the impervious surface is going to be the water runoff. So we're looking at rain gardens. If we do actually put gutters on the building, we would do rain gardens where the water is actually filtered through, different vegetation and stuff like that. It'll actually be funneled that way, so it doesn't actually cause any type of erosion. It won't actually filter down into the lake. And then I also was looking at possibly doing a gravel eaves trough. It basically, you don't put gutters. You do 2.5 feet out from the foundation, 18 inches deep. The water just runs off, and then that way it dissipates. It's not going to actually go down into the lake from there. And we have what they call sugar sandy soil. Water has never had a problem going into that soil. It will evaporate into the soil if I decided to do it that way. But both of those would help control the 21%, or the extra 1%, I guess, or whatever, for our runoff from the actual roof. I don't know, did you want to go over the 20% or that, or? I'll try something. This is Jesse Misgel. He's the actual surveyor. He's the one who's helped me go through most of this. He's the one, that obviously drew up most of what you guys have. So basically, I from looking at both of those things, I believe that we've also satisfied 6. And if we satisfy 1 and we satisfy 6, at that point I would ask you guys to look at the 3 conditions that would allow you to give me the variance. And number 2, which some of the paperwork actually has talked about the irregular shape of the property. Number 2 talks about exceptional or extraordinary circumstances where physical conditions such as narrowness, shallowness, shape, topography, property that's involved for the intended use of the property that do not generally apply to other properties. We have an unusual property that has an alleyway road on one side, and then we have a road behind us as well. The gentlemen out there, they were able to see it. It really limits my possibility to build this building. So this was something that, like I said, we're since July of last year been working on adjusting this as much as we possibly can. So I hope you see that the work that we've done to try and stick within the ordinances.
Thank you. We may be calling you back.
Jesse Mitchell, surveyor, Bob Mitchell Associates. Our business address is 404 West Main Street, Kingston. So this application is really one of the main reasons the ZBA is here. This property is a non-conforming property. Its area is only about 12,000 square feet. The Forest District overlay requires properties to be 40,000 square feet. So right there, you can see that this property is about a third the size of the minimum. So you're likely going to have problems putting a standardized structure on a property that is so small. This property also has a lot of existing issues that the applicant is proposing to fix. One, it has an outdated septic system, which these septic systems that are outdated are actually proven to be one of the highest causes of pollution. Now, when he is issued a permit, land use permit, he is forced to go to the health department and bring everything up to current codes. So that is a big plus for the lake right there. So the issue of impervious with these currently at 24%, he's proposing to reduce his nonconformity down to 21%. Now, that really seems like he shouldn't even be required to ask for a variance because he's an existing nonconformity at 24%. And he's proposing to reduce that. However, with processing permits, I understand why it's required, because he's essentially going to wipe everything and start over fresh. Now, on the dimensional setbacks, he explained that the existing structure, is at 46 feet. So he's already a nonconformity, and it's pretty much been in use by right by the ZBA, where applicants can recreate the existing condition with a new construction. And if you actually, research past approved variances, in 2018, Mark Putnett applied for a variance for a brand new construction where there was a little tiny cabin, and he was approved to build a structure that was 3 times the size of that cabin at a distance of 26 feet from Rainy Lake. Now, there's precedent where this has been approved by the ZBA before. And the applicant's case today, I would say he's proposing to fix some issues. Now, the only other variance that doesn't have much justification, but you can see why he's asking for it, is the garage, being 11 feet from the street. Fall of 2022, an application was approved by Brad Kroll for a brand new garage, 18 by 18, 12 feet from the road. So there's precedent for that being approved also. And I would see with the applicant today proposing to rip out all of the existing impervious surface and start over fresh by placing stone beds in for drives, which actually work much better than soil because they can retain 50% of the volume of the water that hits them. I would say his application is making this non-conformity more conforming. And to deny him this after he's made all these changes really doesn't seem to be what this board has been doing for years.
So as a guy who's done a lot of permits, I believe this application should be approved with all the modifications and reductions to the impact that that's proposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's open public hearing at 7:57.
My name is Bruce Brown. I live at 4411 Lakeview Trail, right next door to the previous speaker. The proposed house expansion at 4399 would really encroach on the privacy of my home and the other homes in the neighborhood. These lots are not big, as you've heard people say. That lot, I think, is smaller than all, if not most. I've owned the house for 13 years. My family's owned it for 60 years. So there's been 60 years of property taxes to the municipality here. It would be a reduction in privacy. I mean, the lake is already noisy and busy. Tearing down, there's not very many trees on that lot, but tearing down the trees that are on it to put up a building is going to make it even noisier, in my opinion. I'm not an engineer in this regard, but I've lived on the lake for, like I said, 60 years, parts of 60 years, quite a bit of that. I've seen the houses that have gone up. We've had, there used to be cabins, and now they're, 3,000 square feet houses, and it's noisy because of that, because of all the modern vehicles too. It makes it noisier. So I don't think that this expansion is going to make house values better. I think it's going to make them worse. I think this is going to be a noise maker, a modern buildings replacing natural environment change. So I don't see why the increase in one person's property value should come at the expense of the other properties around it. Okay, I haven't really studied too much on the building thing, so I just spoke to that quickly. The owners of this property put a raft in the middle of the bay. We used to ski in and out of this bay. We used to drop off skiers, take them out skiing. Can't do it now. The raft there, right in the middle of the bay, because people swim up to it. I have a niece who has a nice ski boat who would like to come over and ski, and it's not possible with a raft right in the middle of the bay. We used to be, people had rafts. I mean, I didn't used to be. People have rafts 20 feet off the shoreline for their house. This one is quite a bit further than that.
You want to finish up, please?
Okay. Yeah, I've paid taxes on this house for quite a while. My family has too, and so I was not going to come to this meeting about the raft, but I've asked the neighbors to move the raft. They have not moved it. It's directly in front of mine. I grant you that all the is in front of everybody's house because the properties are pie-shaped in a bay. So it comes to a point out in the middle.
Sir, your time is up.
Okay. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for comment?
Clerk Leslie, East Bay Township. I'm a riparian on Spider Lake and part of the Lake Association Board. My apologies about not being able to connect my computer with this connection. I included a letter in terms of my concerns, and some of the overall aerial views, I think, also give a little bit of a perspective on this property and its effect in terms of Spider Lake in general. The property is in the corner of a relatively shallow bay, and Lakeview Trail is along the peninsula, which is all form of irregular non-conforming lots, and all of those lots have similar problems and circumstances. That whole peninsula, it compromises about 4.5 acres. The center road compromises about a half acre. There are a total of 20 separate houses or cottages on that 4 acres. So the peninsula, as you see here, is a high jump of land with the road along the ridge of land with high drop-off of 20 to 30 feet on each side. Each of those houses on those irregular lots have septics, and they drain into the lake. The parcel in question in the corner here, and I'd have you take note that next to the parcel, along one edge, if you've been to the site, there's about a 3-acre wetland as well that I think adds to the significance of what we decide here today for this parcel. Even though we don't have strict regulations in terms of protection of wetlands, the side of the parcel is probably within the 50-foot setbacks as per the aerial view of the Grand Traverse County Parcel Viewer and their measuring devices that are available on that site. So most of the development of that parcel that's proposed will lead to removal of most of the trees on the parcel just by the nature of the rebuild and the excavation that will be necessary. The whole area is at risk. The whole peninsula is at risk for increasing sedimentation and runoff into the lake and degrading the quality of the relatively shallow bays on both sides. Any variance requests that are granted will negatively affect the quality of the lake. Unfortunately, any precedences that we today vote on and pass in terms of allowing this variance, they then be cited as criteria that all the other parcels can similarly request variances for upgrading and expanding those parcels. And indeed, there's other examples where the zoning administration has needed to grant those parcels, those variances. And I think we just can't assume that the irregular non-conforming parcel, because it exists and prior granting of variances, should be considered the basis for allowing the continued deterioration of the Forest Lakes Overlay Protective Ordinance. So because of that, I would suggest that, the granting of this variance is ill-advised. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Brandon Quincy, East Bay resident. I appreciate the applicant's desire to make improvements on their property, as well as the efforts they've made to make concessions from the original request in order to achieve their desired build. However, there are some serious concerns with possible approval of the variance requested for a structure of this magnitude on an already non-conforming lot. I would ask that you all thoroughly consult Section 201 regarding non-conformances and proposed expansions. I think that would be useful in your deliberations. The revisions provided suggest only a corner of the overhang will sit in a 50-foot setback, which they propose to remove. However, the plan set provided also shows a deck on the lakeside portion of the main level, which also extends into the 50-foot setback. Please review this section, section being 501, building projections, specifically 4D, which states porches, awnings, or other impervious features shall not be extended into the required waterfront setback to ensure full compliance. Particularly where the deck drains to a patio that will not offer full permeability as it appears on the plans, at least to my eye. Please also consider when decks are above living spaces below and what appears to be in the plan set as a grill station. It is very common to construct decks with an under deck ceiling or gutter system, which helps divert that water, thereby making it impervious, not a draining deck. Furthermore, the stormwater ordinance defines impervious area to include gravel driveways and parking areas. Please consult stormwater ordinance for relevant topics prior to making any decision. I think that will become most important when looking at the true numbers of impervious area on the site. I know it's been proposed that it's 21%, however, that number could be very different when including these materials as well. Section 231-6A states, and that's, entitled Impervious Surface. Impervious surfaces include rooftops, concrete, or asphalt pavement and similar materials shall comprise not more than 20% of the gross site area. I know you're all very familiar with that. However, it also says, provided, however, that the Planning Commission may permit greater areas of imperviousness where measures acceptable to the Drain Commissioner or pursuant to the Stormwater Control Ordinance are proposed. And the reason why I note that is that I believe it's important that the Planning Commission is the governmental body which is entrusted with the decisions regarding any increase to the impervious surface calculation, as opposed to the zoning board. Please consider the mathematics of impervious in this meaningful way, where every 2% of impervious above and beyond the required 20%, it actually increases the impervious area by 10%. I think that is a different way to look at it, but it's more impactful when you consider what the actual increase is. This includes future plans for landscaping, including hardscape materials, which aren't shown on the plans, and any clearing of the lot to accommodate the new septic, which would also further reduce native vegetation on the site. And that would specifically be the drain field. Typically, those need to be flat. Lastly, any variances approved have a cumulative impact on water quality. Quite literally, they have a trickle-down effect on the health, safety, and welfare of the lake's area community as Spider Lake feeds into Arbutus Lake. I would urge you to please deny this request as presented, and thank you all for your time and attention to these critical details.
Thank you.
Good evening. Judy Nemitz, East Bay Township resident. Yeah, I think Section 201 is key because you are Article 10. And it says in there, if a non-conforming use with approval of the ZBA be charged to less objectionable and more restrictive non-conforming use. That's what it says. It says less objectionable and more restrictive, not bigger, folks. That's what it says in our zoning ordinance book. So I think 201 is key with that. And non-conformings aren't supposed to be bigger. That is kicking the can down the road and creating more non-conformings. We're dealing with a non-conforming lot and we're dealing with a non-conforming structure. So do you want to increase and build another non-conforming structure? That's what you would be doing. Think about it. He's tearing down a non-conforming, but you're going to say, let's build a bigger non-conforming. That's not what it says here in 201. Also, the Forest Lakes overlay is key to this. We're talking, when you build a house, East Bay Township is very, very good. We give you 24 inches on an eave. Okay, so he already can go into the front 48 with an eave, with a roof. That seems reasonable to me, not 12 feet. That 50 foot is key with our Forest Lakes overlay. And we all know that we need to have vegetation in there, we need to have filtration. It's spelled out pretty clearly in 231 how the first 30 feet is highly native vegetation, and the next 20 is lesser to the setback, and it's definitely in there. Also, I think we need to be really, really clear on this, that the current well is probably a shallow well, as noted, and it's right in the 50-foot setback. So we don't know, according to the Forest Lakes overlay, the new well on the plans should have been designated, and it wasn't. Also, the septic system is right on the lot line, and there would have to be an easement that would have to be registered with the Register of Deeds. I don't believe you can put a septic field right on the lot line without an easement. The other thing is that we're talking that road is a private road, I understand, and it's very narrow. So what are you going to do with snow removal? What are you going to do with line of sight? We are charged with the health, safety, and welfare. Where are people going to park in the driveway? A car is 16 feet long. Trucks could be 21. You're talking something that's 11.8. How are you going to park a car there? You know, are guests going to park in that parking area by that road? I would really be cognizant of that too, because there's a reason why these ordinance 505 and the setbacks are in place for health, safety, and welfare. I think impervious surface is important too. We just told the applicant before that he couldn't be at 22 or 23. It's 20%. It'd be pretty hard to come and say 21 is okay, and have the calculations actually being done by the township. I think our planning and zoning office should figure those calculations too. I'm not sure about that. The other thing, I don't know if you were able to get down to the lakefront on there. There is an artificial beach. The trees are removed in the front. There is a dugout. We have a photo if you'd like to see it. And that is to be noted on 231, all artificial beaches, if you are familiar with section 231, which is not on the plans. I think you have incomplete plans here that don't meet what our ordinances are, and if you feel like you need to postpone it, that's what you need to do. But I don't think it's met the criteria that's spelled out in this book. And if you'd like to, can I just show you the picture real quick of it? Did you get down there by the waterfront?
I saw a lot of it, including straight up.
All right.
Thank you.
It saw that there was an artificial beach that's not noted. I think that would be important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Right.
Giselle Pelto, Abbey Lane, East Bay. I'm just going to read part of Heather Smith's letter in regards to this request. She states, the existing home and accessory structure shed at 4399 Lakeview Trail currently encroached into the 50-foot water's edge setback, which already jeopardizes this sensitive area. This is a request to extend the non-conformity. Secondly, the applicant appears to have plans to destroy the riparian buffer 50 feet landward of the water's edge. She refers to renderings on page 38 to 45 of the agenda packet to depict a clear cutting of the waterfront, which conflicts with the riparian buffer requirements in zoning ordinance section 2231-6C, vegetation filter and buffer strips. Furthermore, the removal of vegetation on slopes can lead to erosion and water quality impairments, and that is even more jeopardized by the fact that there's a wetlands close by, so it's not just the lakes. And that's a source of water, which someone else has stated for all of us. It appears the applicant will need to pursue an additional variance for reduction or elimination of the riparian buffer based on these renderings. The applicant at 4399 Lakeview Trail may consider several ways to reduce impervious surfaces and water's edge setback encroachments. Options may include reducing the size of the proposed house, eliminating the waterside patio area, and using pervious pavement or asphalt for the proposed driveway in the parking area. There appears to be various alternatives available. And the fact that there have been zoning board approvals on non-conforming properties in the past should not be the standard. It doesn't, it's not in compliance with the new master plan, which part of the master plan is to increase the Forest Lakes area enforcements and make changes or protect that area and try to not continue to make decisions for allowances on non-conforming properties. So, and then the other thing is, there's in this February or January's Traverse Northern Michigan, there's a great article about a house built on a lake on rolling hills by an architect, Joseph Mosey. And he managed to build this house, and it wasn't a box, which says that all houses don't need to be boxes. He had to build it up on a high slope, and he built it as lengthwise. It's not a square house, and it's a beautiful house. And they were able...
Judy, I think your time.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 8:19. Okay. To the board. Questions, observations?
I would just say that I appreciate the fact that he tried to reduce the impervious surface and make it better than it is now, as far as from 24% to 21, according to him. But again, it's 20%, so, and I know at the Planning Commission side of things, they look at, you know, how they mitigate some of that runoff, but it's still at 20% is what we need. So, and I think reducing the size of the house would help with the setbacks. I mean, it is an irregular piece of property, so I can see some of that, but it's a huge house going on a very small piece of property.
Granted. Rod?
I get that look, huh?
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that just strikes me overall in this is what came to us is very different than a lot of the things that were talked about tonight and promised, but not really on paper, and we don't have the plans with those changes. I mean, on one side of me says extend this or let them come back with more information, get their thoughts after hearing this under control, and, you know, look at that whole thing. Maybe maybe it is 21%, maybe it's 20.5%, I don't know. That's my feeling from an overall, I mean, a lot of information. I give them credit. That house has got to be rebuilt soon. We were out there. It's not in good shape. So, and they led us and talked to us about that. The foundation is sinking in a corner. So I think that, you know, I hate to just totally refuse everything. I think maybe there's some working room here. That's my comment.
I agree. I mean, with the previous application we had, 20% is 20%. I can appreciate the reduction. I'm also concerned about the proximity of the parking along that road. I've been down these roads when it's in full season and people are there and it's nearly impossible to get by. But out of all fairness to the applicant as well, with the new information that we were provided, I feel it's fair to extend this to next month's meeting.
I agree with that.
Okay.
We've had a lot of stuff in the last 2 days to look at here, and as Rod said, or as Tracy said, I'm glad to see that they're trying to make improvements on making it less and work with it. I think a little bit more to go might get them there, but I'm not, I don't think, I'd like to look at this a little harder and get more, and get better drawings, of exactly what's going on.
And in regards to the septic, because of the lot size and the proximity and the slope, would they be required to have holding tanks as opposed to regular septic and drain field?
Good information to have.
Yep,
Good
that's what I would like to know as well.
I think we need that.
Can I speak to some of that? First of all, the parking.
Up to the,
First of all, we have a separate parking down below too. So the mention about not having parking, we actually have room for 4 cars to park down below by the water.
Which is
So
in
it's not just
the
above
50-foot setback, right? It's in the 50-foot
Yes,
buffer.
yes. But I'm saying there's parking there, there's parking above. I'm just saying that, and we have never, I've been there for 12 years, nobody that's ever been in my house has ever parked on the road. Never blocked the road, ever. As far as what was the second thing? I'm sorry, you just brought it up, and I just blanked on that because I was talking about that.
Septic.
Yes, septic. Because there was mention of well earlier. The well's not changing, the well is the same, so it's on the plans. That is the well, it's gonna be the well. The septic, that is something that has, it's not part of this proceeding, because that actually, I was dealing with the health department. It is gonna have to change. They will not be able to be at the same place. There's a thing called a dual drain field set up. I've talked to Faith with the health department. So there is a possibility to still, we won't do a pump out system. There is space where we'll be able to do a septic system, but until we determine where the actual building is going to sit, we can't really determine where the actual septic system is going to be at. So she wanted to table where we're going to do it and plans for that once, we determine where the actual building is at.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
I was looking at what was referenced to us as the letter by Heather Smith, and as was commented about a number of different suggestions that she did or has put in the letter. And I just wanted to say for the record that the applicant had already indicated that there were going to be some significant changes that would be dovetailed pretty much on some of the suggestions that she had made. However, this was and is a fast change because we did not know some of the things until later today or this morning, actually, as to some of the changes. And I personally would like to see some other drawings and the way this thing would be really laid out. Going from 24 down to 21 says you're really close. And you've shown a lot of, ideas about trying to get there. And I'm just wondering whether or not, if we postpone this, you can take a look at this, get some other information for us to make a good decision. At the same time, really toggle it to see if you can get down to the 20%.
Okay, so just so I understand, you want other drawings than, I believe page, the thing that we sent you this morning, I understand, and I apologize it was late, but the exhibits, I believe it was exhibit number 2, that actually showed where the reduction of the overhang was done. I just want to make sure I get, if we do table this for the next because that's based on the actual survey that we have, because you were saying you weren't sure about the numbers, and it was drawn by the architect off of the surveyor's drawing, so I just wanted to make sure what exactly I would need different than that for the next time, because it's gonna, I mean, does that make sense? Like, what different would I bring? Because the surveyor and the architect are the ones who are licensed, drew this, came up with the numbers, so I just want to make sure that I understand what you're asking me to provide.
Well, on the drawings that I have, this shows where the roof line is, which is now changed because you've reduced the roof line, correct?
Did they not get the one that shows the?
I mean,
I'm not too sure which one we got exactly.
you know, and that's part of the
looking at our
confusion.
packet.
Okay, that's what, can I steal that from you?
Yep.
Okay, so this one, the red is showing what's being removed.
All right, well, I'm looking at the overall, and
So
what I'm,
I will show where the front is removed there, and then in the bottom corner, it shows the other variance where the dimensions of the corner of the garage.
yeah, well, yeah, and also, some of the suggestions out there is the possibility of just making it a little smaller.
Which is fine, and I get that, we've changed, like, the design, the size, everything, multiple times. And you were out there, the stakes for the corner of the building, it's not like they were 12 feet away, they were 2 or 3 feet away. We're not making the structure any bigger. Yes, it has more square footage because there's a second floor on it, and then there's gonna be a basement in it. That's the difference, it's not the structure this way, and that's gonna be the difficult part, because like, again, I got this triangle I'm trying to work in, so if to reduce it, I mean, then I'm only gonna be building a building that's a foot wider than what it is currently. You know what I'm saying? You guys saw where the stakes were at, they weren't that far off that building. So, reducing square footage, I mean, I could take the second floor off, I mean, it reduces square footage, but it still doesn't help me with the 21%. I mean, I'm still at the 21%. That's kind of the issue. And again, like I said, we have maneuvered it, like I said, to try and move back from the 50-foot setback, you know, and only have to be, I know it's the overhang that is over the, you know, the 50-foot setback, but we did reduce the size a few times. I know that doesn't matter here, but we were looking at something a little bit larger, obviously, when we originally designed it, and we have scaled it back quite a few times to where we're at right now. So, I just want to make sure if we do table, that I understand like what I can do to make it different. We're changing everything else about the property as far as impervious surface. It's only legitimately the roof that is going to be impervious surface. And I mean, at this point, there was a mention of the overhang being 12 foot. It's not 12 foot. That you guys see. Unfortunately, they didn't get to see the change. It is now at 7. The roof we could move the front back to 4, which I think it's 4, would bring it back to 20%.
Well, you see, even in the discussion, we're
Right.
trying
I'm
to,
just saying though, if I did that, I'm still going to face the 50-foot setback, because even at 4, it's still a smaller triangle that's over that 50-foot setback. It's still going to be an issue unless I actually move the building further back, which then pushes the corner of the garage back. You know, so I'm limited in the size that I have. So I guess that's kind of, I just want you guys to, this wasn't taken, this isn't something that we've spent a lot of months working on this to try and make this fit. So I just want you guys to understand that this isn't something that I'm just like, hey, deal with it, it's 21%. It never, I mean, I have tried tremendously to bring this down, and even like the parking lot, like I said earlier, removing the parking lot. There are such things as pervious gravel, there are pervious pavers, there are multiple different things that I can put in that parking lot that will be a pervious spot. All of our sidewalks and everything are removed from, you know, from this. We are just going with the roof line is the only impervious spot on that property.
Is your parking lot the road that's now, that's not paved now, is it?
Which one?
Where
are you guys parked tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, that's paved, yeah.
Is that gonna be paved in the?
No, it will not.
That'll be.
That's all gone.
All right.
Yep.
So that was part of your calculation?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, can I speak to,
By all means.
on the topic of impervious surface and the efforts made by the applicant, which are commendable to bring it closer into conformity, there is still, and this may be a good reason to table it as well, some work to be done on the impervious suggestions. Gravel still has an impervious factor to it. There are different types of gravels. I've heard equations of 80-20, I've heard 50-50. There are permeable pavers out there, but the literature that it can be provided by the product manufacturer sometimes leaves you still wondering what is the exact permeability of this. And as noted by the applicant in conversation, he wants to remove sidewalks, and which, of course, if it's dirt or something close to that, would certainly mitigate that impervious portion of it. But there would be a lot of onus on the applicant to whatever he's proposing and what you guys would be considering as a change to the impervious surface. Based on his changes, there's material that would need to be provided with that as well and the surveyor could speak to that as well and with updated material if you table this till next month.
Yeah, I think basically we're looking beyond the supposition. We'd like to get some more facts as to how this would actually shake out.
And I would be fine if you, because part of it, like he was suggesting that there are some things are not, you could put a provision in the approval stating that it would have to be a permissible pervious material used. And then that would have to be with the building department to verify that I'm using a pervious permitted material.
Yeah, but now we're negotiating. I don't want to.
I'm just saying that he's mentioning that some gravel is not, and I agree. That's why there's multiple. Unfortunately, I've spent 6 months going through pervious and impervious materials and different things. So it's like, I understand you could find just as many studies saying this gravel is pervious as you will find that says it's impervious. So for me to come to you next month and tell you this is the material I want, I'll have 10 people here saying, oh, well, I found studies that these aren't, these are impervious materials. It's a very slippery slope, because I would be willing to, if you wanted to make it a provision, that it had to be an acceptable one to the board. If you wanted to say that that's fine, we're gonna allow the 21% impervious because the roof isn't gonna change, but any other material that's put on the property as far as for the driveway or the sidewalks, which is the only other spot that I would have it, would have to be an acceptable to the board, an acceptable pervious material. I would use whatever you guys want me to, if that's what makes it, because you could do, I mean, there's so many of them. I could list them and then I could have 10 people come up behind me and say they're not right. So whatever I'm gonna come up with, they're gonna say it's not right, so I would rather you guys put a provision in that it has to be an acceptable pervious material, and I will do exactly what you guys want.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, can I just make a comment that we're, not just dealing with one variance request here, we're dealing with several.
Yeah, we are, and
Yeah.
and I know that my feeling is that the board is uncomfortable with the information that we have, especially since, it changed as, the day of the presentation. But I recognize and I thank you for your comment. That's true. There are other items that we are looking at.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
He is absolutely correct that you can tie conditions to your approval as long as they're consistent with and tied to one of our ordinances. And so with the fact that I will not be at the March ZBA, food for thought for that, if this is tabled and comes back then, that conditions could be tied to it, such as suggested, but they have to be consistent with and tied to one of our ordinances, which would be Section 231.
Right, I agree. And we have that option at any meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to table this till the March meeting.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to table the presentation till the March meeting by Lindsay and seconded by John. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, the motion is to table it, and it will give you some opportunity to take a look at your plans, materials, issues on the septic system. I think we have some questions on that, too.
So is that, do you want me to have that established before that next meeting? Because the health department told me until I know exactly where the.
You need to, yeah, thank you.
I keep forgetting.
Keep,
So, according to the health department, I cannot determine my septic system. I mean, the location right now of where it's at because of the building, it's gonna move a little bit, but she was telling me, because I wanted to get that information, and she's like, I can't even help you. She did come out, do the soil test, make sure that, it drained it correctly and all that, and it would be fine to be able to put it where we're thinking it's gonna be. But until she knows where the actual building's at, we have to go 10 feet from the actual building for the first tank. So I can't really tell you where it's gonna be at. I can give you a generalization where I think it's gonna be, but that's not really gonna help anybody. So I don't know, is that?
we're not looking for the specificity at this point, just some of the issues around that, and you may have just covered it right now.
Okay, because I could draw the proposed.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then there's the setback, so
And the setbacks, yeah.
what do we want to see with that? 'Cause
I mean, they're asking for rear watermark. While it's reducing from the ordinary high watermark, I mean, this is a complete rebuild, so therefore, I would feel more comfortable outside of the watermark. And there's a garage attached to this that look like it can hold 2 boats, and I mean, sometimes not all of us have the luxury of having a garage at our establishments. So those are my other concerns.
So you need to look at the size of the setbacks, I would say.
So, just so we understand, though, the front setback is just the overhang. So if I brought the overhang back, that setback would be met. It's not the
Yes, but
building, so
there's
just so they understand, we're not moving the building back, we're just moving the roof line back.
But there's a setback on the garage side
Yes,
as
that's
well.
separate, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, she mentioned that one, so, yes, and the garage as well. But, on
So
our
you
road-
may have to eliminate your garage, or part of it, or something.
Okay.
You need to look at that and decide what you're comfortable with, and then you can bring that back, and whether we approve it or not, that's at that meeting.
Okay, and I understand that, so I can reduce, we'll look at like reducing it, but that's part of the 7 steps, and granted, we're not going through that, but the whole reason of having the 7 steps and meeting those 7 steps is to be able to have the opportunity for the variance, which is allowing you, because I have a non-conforming, to be outside of that setback. And if you look, I actually know my neighbors, but I measured every property. They talked about the 20 different properties that are on Lakeview Trail. 13 of them are within inside that 30-foot setback. And I know not all of them have been built in the last few years, but most of them have been built in the last 15 years. I'm not doing something that is outside of what's there. And I know you guys drove up to my property, but you didn't continue down the road. You have to be careful continuing down my road, because if you go past my house, there's 2 houses, there are garages that are literally sitting on the road. They were built within the last 15 years. So, and we're not quite there. We're 17 feet off of that. And it's just the corner that we're 17 feet off. So I will look at reducing it, obviously, like you guys suggested. We'll discuss it. But it's another thing is this is gonna be my retirement home, and so I want to try and have it to be the house that I want. This is kind of what, we came up here, it's like, I grew up here, I came up, it's like I want to come back up here, and it's like, and I understand, but a 2-stall garage is a lot smaller than the average garage. Most garages are being built at 3-stall. I built it to a smaller 2-stall garage.
But you bought a really small property
Yeah.
to put that on.
Yes, no, and I completely understand.
We appreciate, I mean, it's a oddly shaped property. We appreciate the challenge.
Yeah.
And all we're asking is that if you could take a look at this, refine it a bit.
100%.
Okay.
I plan to do that. I just want to make sure I don't wanna come back and have the same issues, and then you're like, oh, you didn't look at what we were talking about.
You can handle the issues by looking at the ordinance. That's what we're going by.
Right, no, and I understand that.
Okay.
But that was part of the thing that's why I was asking. Part of asking for the variance is being able to meet the 7 requirements, and so that, I guess that's where, so to make sure that I understand it, am I having to make sure that the garage is not at all over that rear setback then at this point? Because are you saying that you're not gonna consider a variance at all? I'm gonna fix the front variance by getting that out of the ordinary high water mark, which is going to, by moving that.
We're not saying what we're going to do or not going to do,
I'm
but
asking so I know going forward what you want me to draw. Should I take the garage off, I guess is what I'm looking at.
I
No.
can't tell you that.
yeah, these are just suggestions. You've heard the concerns of the board. You've heard the concerns of the public. Take them back, see what you can do. You're really close,
Okay,
and you've shown great creativity, so
okay.
thank
I'll
you.
change it, thank you.
Can I ask a clarification question? So Preston, and maybe you know the answer to this, if we were to deny a request, is there a time period that the applicant cannot come back before us with
1
the
year.
same request?
Yeah.
So just,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I believe me, I found that out the other day talking to Preston as well, so that's why we were adjusting things.
Much better to table.
Don't get me wrong, I really appreciate you tabling it, I'm not saying that, I'm a stickler, I wanna know exactly what you want from me so I can give it to you the next time I come, that's all I'm trying to do.
Thank
So
you.
that way it makes it easier for all of us the next time.
Well, that's why I did some more talking,
And I
so
appreciate
that you
that.
had better idea
Yeah,
of what
so,
we
and
were.
I appreciate that, and I will come back.
Thank you.
we're trying to work with you
I
here.
appreciate it, we'll see you guys next month.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Public comment. Starting at 8:44. Is there any public comment? Going once, going twice? All right, closed at 8:44. All right, our next meeting now will be March 1st. And,
March 14th.
I'm sorry, did I say March?
March 1st, only March 14th.
March forward, right, okay. March 14th. I believe it's the
I don't have
14th.
a calendar.
Yes, it's on
Yeah,
the agenda.
it's March 14th, okay?
Preston, will there be another staff member here in your
I will be
absence?
here in my absence.
Okay.
Okay. And then one last thing is that there will be a public workshop on the riparian zone protections on the 21st of February at 6 PM in this town hall. And anybody out there who's interested in being part of that discussion, please come. Thank you. We are adjourned.